Welcome back to the news. Valve seem to be blocking a bunch of AI-related game stuff, and we have loads of really fascinating stories. I mean, hey, the prospect of a 60 frames per second Bloodborne is contained within this video. Pretty damn hype. To get into our first story, though, it is Valve and artificial intelligence. So, Simon Carless, who's a writer, surfaced some really interesting news, and that is that Valve seems to be taking steps to block new games that feature a lot of AI content creation. So, this came from a Reddit user called PotterHarry97, who posted what they claim to be redacted screenshots of emails from Valve. And it basically claims that they have identified intellectual property in the application build that they submitted to Valve that Valve believes may be belonging to a third party, where essentially Valve are arguing here that they need to know that the ownership, basically ownership sources of all of the AI generated content in the game, so that basically the creator is going to have to prove that all the art in their game it's an AI that is trained on their own material. So if you're using Midjourney, that's obviously not trained off your own material, meaning, yeah, you can't. Now, there are studios, there are tech companies that are working on basically AI where you can submit your own stuff. Now, that I think is really ethically a far better situation to be existing in than the one where it's just, you know, the Midjourney grifters. Things like that, I mean, can be a fun tool to play around with, but I think then when it turns into the grift and all of that, then you really start to get into those issues. I think within the industry, most of the things that people would be excited about, like AI for, it's stuff like UV unwrapping. All of that, you know, that stuff in like, say, 3D modeling that is just grunt work that nobody enjoys, but you've got to do. Or maybe helping make a texture tile. That sort of thing. Tools rather than just, ooh, the magic box did 85 people's jobs and we can fire them all. That's pretty much what nobody wants. To go back to Valve, I think a lot of people will be happy at this news, right? They don't really want an encroachment of these things into their games. But as Dominic, who's a journalist, points out here, they've handled this in a way that is the bad side of Valve, as in, there hasn't been an officially communicated policy update. People don't exactly know what's going on. So, as he says, there's no publicly announced policy, there's no specifics. In this case, somebody failed a vibe check. And there are other games that are using some, like, AI-assisted, like assets, like High on Life, like Firmament, like Hawken Borne, which of course we talked about on the channel a while ago, because, whoa, that looks really rough. Those have been fine. Did Valve send emails to those developers and get everything, thumbs up? Who knows? Right? And I think that's the thing where ultimately developers and publishers and everybody would just like to have a clear policy position actually be laid out for us. As for Valve's perspective in this, honestly, I think they don't really care humongously themselves. I'm sure people at Valve will, but what they probably don't want is copyright notices and strikes on their store, because that's just a headache for them, and they'd probably rather not deal with that headache. In the same way that regarding a bunch of crypto stuff, evidently, like, you think about Valve's sort of little libertarian spirit, there's a part of that that totally does fit a lot of crypto, right? Like, the decentralization, all of that, but ultimately, they've just realized, like, no, crypto's a pain in the ass. We don't want crypto games. Can you imagine how much of a headache that would be for us as store owners? So I think ultimately Valve are doing what's in their best interest here. It does happen to align, I think, with what a lot of consumers would want. And speaking of something that's got absolutely no AI in it, for the promo of today, it's not a sponsor, it's us with The Pale Beyond, which currently is on the Steam Summer Sale, which I only found out about when I logged into Steam one day and saw that, oh, our own game is on the Summer Sale. Interesting. Turned out I missed a mail from our publisher. But yes, if you want to pick up The Pale Beyond, which currently you can see we've got very high ratings, which we're very happy about, you can do that if you want an heroic age of exploration inspired narrative survival role-playing game. Certainly. Do the hard mode and try to be a bit more Iron Man, because one of the things that I think narratively is really paid off is things going to shit and you being able to carry that playthrough going. On one of my first runs, like, everyone lived, I pretty much got the best of everything. Suffice to say, almost everyone can die. And a lot of work goes into making sure the script actually deals with that in a satisfying manner. So anyway, if you want to support us, the link is down below. And with that said, let's talk about Gamers Network and Geo Media, who are taking on the AI path Oh, this is what we want. So, Gamers Network, they own Upcomer, Prima Games, Twinfinite, The Escapist, Destructoid, and fresh off a round of 50 layoffs in March, they have got a new job role, an AI editor for 40 to 55,000 USD that can be remote in the US. It's a full-time role, and they'll be working with AI content and SEO strategists to finalize workflow and production of AI-created content. Oh boy, the expected output of is about 200 to 250 articles a week while working alongside their AI content and SEO strategist. They're essentially, essentially you're basically like, hey, article every 10 minutes, and that'll be $5 an article if you actually work those things out. Is this how you get incisive, smart news that actually involves real journalism, us finding out new truths? No, I mean, look, if you want to be like old school Joystick and you just, well, if you remember Joystick, I mean, that's going back a good few years now, but anyway, if you just want to go to the company's press center, take their press release, copy it, put it into the AI, give it a sample of your publication's like speaking voice and just say, hello, could you style match this press release with this, which is an example of how I type? The AI says, yes, I will do that. And there you go. An article. Amazing. What value creation for us to have. Isn't it amazing that all of this true, real value is being created? Oh, great. I love sludge. I absolutely love sludge. You know what? Just go straight to the source and go to like Business Wire, I suppose. So this is an attitude that is focused on volume, not quality of the work. One of those things, I think they know that even if they decrease like the average impact of one of their articles, if they can get far more articles out there, overwhelm the SEO, stuff like that, then that'll be interesting. But here's what I am thinking. So for Google, this shit is a bit of a problem, right? Number one, the signal-to-noise ratio of their searches will be worse, and, there's some worries that maybe the more we're having AI content, the more that can, I suppose, sidestep some of Google's advertisement-based stuff. I mean, it depends if the site that is pumping out all the shite does happen to be using, like, Google AdWords. But anyway, I would wonder, though, do you remember the Penguin update for Google? I think it was Penguin. This happened many years ago, but it totally changed how page ranking worked. And a lot of businesses just exploded overnight because suddenly all their search volume was gone. But I do wonder if Google will maybe start to see a downside as more companies go like this, and perhaps Google will start to run some of its own like AI detection stuff. That said, if they do try to police that, that is a whole crazy can of worms. But anyway, this is not particularly amazing. Now, this also is right in line with the Kotaku owner, Geo Media, launching a bit of a plan to do some AI content testing across their sites. This, of course, sparked outrage from the Geo Media Union that represents the staff, because this announcement also, of course, followed layoffs. So isn't that great? Okay, speaking of bizarre things, hey, Ubisoft, blockchain game, hell yeah! Yeah, turns out this is still happening in the year 2023. This game is called Champions Tactics, Grimoria Chronicles, and it is their first blockchain game. It's been announced, and yes, it basically invokes really the trappings of a tabletop tactics game. The description is that it's a PvP tactical RPG experimental game on PC. They say experimental, which basically means, yeah, if this is a total shit show, it's fine. We only said it was an experiment. But of course, this is a collaboration with a recurring character in this channel for the last year, Oasis, which is the same blockchain group that is behind Square Enix's Symbiogenesis thing, as well as Sega's NFT plan. So ultimately, this isn't a core Ubisoft thing. This is just something that they're continuing, to go along with. I don't have much in the way of hopes. Okay, next then. Normally, games get delayed to avoid a big release. In this case, though, Baldur's Gate 3 is actually coming out way sooner. It was going to come out on the 31st of August, now it's coming out on the 3rd of August, except in the PS5, where they're going to need another week to basically confirm 60 FPS stability on the PS5. Pretty interesting then. They announced a host of launch day content updates, including a significant amount of customization options, a promise of 170 hours worth of cutscenes across the whole game, and more cinematic dialogue than 3 times all 3 Lord of the Rings novels combined. Which I'm sure is both in some ways a good thing and in other ways maybe less good of a thing. Anyway, in terms of saying the quiet part out loud, do you know why it's not in the Xbox? Because it's the S. We need to ensure the game is performing without compromise across the entire Xbox X and S ecosystem in multiplayer and split screen. They say they'll update as soon as they can, but yeah, that seems to be the reason. As much as the Series S may have been a play for market share from Team Green, ultimately, do they have the market share? No. And is the Series S proving to be a thorn in the side of AAA developers, especially the multiplats? Yeah. Wonder what they're going to do about that. I mean, in terms of bare metal raw power, I'm fairly sure that the Series S is less powerful than the more powerful version of the Xbox One X, the Xbox. So you do end up, I think, with this weird situation where in a few years, people will be developing for a console that in terms of pure horsepower was essentially out of date when it launched. That's going to be a tricky proposition, and I have to wonder if Microsoft will be left having to yield on some of their principles there. Next then, we've got some gaslighting. Oh, I love some gaslighting. Call of Duty's kernel-level anti-cheat is not perfect. It is, of course, a constant struggle to keep cheaters out of the game. This time around, they've been trying to mitigate cheaters by having hallucinations. Yes, by having hallucinations. Not what you'd expect to see, but here's the deal. Look at this screenshot. One of these is real, one of them is not real, but can only be seen by the cheater. And basically, it is based on an active player in the match. It mimics their behavior, and it basically means that if the cheaters, let's say they're using an aimbot, if their aimbot is constantly locking on to a hallucination character that isn't there, then, I mean, there you go, right? That's the cheater identified. So this is kind of funny. I'm not sure how they get it so that the hallucination only appears for the cheat player, but I mean, if they're rolling this out, they clearly have a solution worked out. Honestly, I think that's really, really cool, and I love very visual, visceral anti-cheat measures, such as the various NPCs that would troll you in RuneScape. That's one good example, and the invincible scorpion in Serious Sam 3, where if it was a pirated version, there'd be an invincible scorpion that you couldn't defeat. Okay, our final story then. As long as you are Lance McDonald, a prolific games modder, you can play Bloodborne at 1080p 60 FPS on a PlayStation 5. Yes, that's what it is. There's no announcement of how this is done, but what we do know is that the madman has actually done it, and here it is. It is Bloodborne, and it looks pretty damn good. Of course, Bloodborne is a game that really did perform, it's a marvelous game, but it had a very ropey performance. It also had extremely bad frame timing issues. Everyone in the universe knows that this remaster will print money. I suppose, we'll probably cover this formally soon, but I know it wasn't the South Korean, ratings agency, didn't they, leak Red Dead Redemption Remastered? And it's one of those games that if they did it, everyone would buy it. It's just like this. So come on. I mean, get the people who did, and I know this would be a large project because it was an incredible piece of work, but the Demon Souls remaster. Could you imagine if Bloodborne got the Demon Souls remaster treatment? That would be the most incredible thing. Oh, it'd be so exciting. So that is that. If you want to support us and also get some video game content, I think you're looking at 8 hours. Probably you'll want to, because there's a few different endings and all the different characters who can live and die. And I'll change how the story sort of feels, change what the characters say to you and everything. You can check out The Pale Beyond. It's currently 20% off on the Steam Summer Sale, which is pretty snazzy. And it's a bit weird going from, being a kid and watching Total Biscuit's Steam Summer Sale, or, his Steam videos where, there'd be one every day that would go over the things and the daily deals and, the flash sales. And, you'd be like, oh no, I'm going to watch videos and Total Biscuit's going to destroy my wallet by recommending good video games. It's really surreal, that now being a thing that we made. Oh, man. Very bizarre. Anyway, if you want to support us, you can do that. The link on Steam's down below. Other than that, though, have a fantastic day, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.